Aardman Animation are something of a national treasure here in the UK. Even if you're not familiar with the company, you will almost certainly know their creations. Arthur Christmas, Morph, Chicken Run, Creature Comforts, Shaun the Sheep, and most famously, Wallace and Gromit.
Prior to 2006, they worked exclusively in clay stop-motion animation, or Claymation as it's sometimes called.
However, once the idea of a film set in the sewer was greenlit, they ran into a bit of a problem. See, the thing is, water is pretty difficult to animate convincingly in Claymation. Clay and water don't mix well, so using real water wouldn't work, and superimposing CGI water would be too expensive and time-consuming since the movie was set in the sewers. So the decision was made for the studio to dive into CGI animation for the first time. Thankfully though, they still maintained that distinct Aardman style with the character designs. Though at the same time, I can't help thinking they could have made more of an effort to make it actually look like Claymation, in a similar way that the Lego movie actually looks like Lego stop motion, even though that's CGI as well.
Oh, and in case you're wondering at this point, a CGI film about rats? Aren't they copying a certain other animation studio? This actually came out first.
This would also be another partnership for the studio with Dreamworks Animation.
And in case you're wondering how I felt about the other films the two studios made together, this was good, although I don't really understand why they're making a sequel. This was kind of on the back end of okay and massively inferior to the shorts, and actually that's it.
Yeah, this was only the third and also final movie the two studios produced together, possibly because of disagreements during filming, coupled with the fact that the movie just didn't make as much as they were expecting.
So, does the quality of the movie itself justify the splitting of the two studios after its release? Let's find out as we take a look at the 2006 animated movie, Flushed Away.
The movie is set in Britain, so of course it takes place not just in London, but that very specific part of London where the Houses of Parliament, Piccadilly Circus and Tower Bridge are. Though to be fair, Piccadilly Circus does give us a bit of early exposition, informing us that England are playing in the World Cup final.
England are playing in the World Cup final? Oh, come on. That would never happen. I expected a higher level of realism from a movie about talking rats.
Also, why is it being advertised with a Union Jack?
I mean, this was made by an English studio, and they don't understand the difference between this and this?
Not to harp on about this part, but I've never in my life heard an England fan say, "Go England." Wouldn't "Come on England" make more sense? Anyway, this family in Kensington are heading away on holiday, so while they're away, our main character Roddy makes the most of having the house to himself by introducing our opening credits with the help of Billy Idol.
Buckle up, everyone!
By the way, get used to these kind of references, the movie has a lot of them. He seems to be feeling a bit lonely after one day alone, but luckily a sewer rat named Sid shows up that night.
Careful, mate! Those aren't chocolate buttons!
Yeah, let that set the standard for the level of humour you're in store for.
I mean, maybe I should have expected a bit of toilet humour given the movie's title, but come on Aardman, you can set the bar a bit higher than that. So it seems Sid has come to watch the World Cup final. Roddy, understandably, isn't too happy about this, so he decides to trick Sid into being flushed away, I guess.
Now you hop in and I'll press this lever to get the bubbles going.
Oh no, it's alright. I tend to just make my own bubbles when I'm swimming. Oh, come on! It's no worse than the jokes they're doing.
But it seems Sid isn't as stupid as he looks, since he turns the tables on Roddy and flushes him instead.
No! I can't swim!
Then what are you doing now?
Well, anyway, Roddy, after being met with more toilet humour and references,
Have you seen my dad?
stumbles across a city in the sewer that I have to admit does look pretty cool. But again, the humour kind of ruins the moment.
Is it a bird?
Is it a plane?
Is that guy wearing my underpants?
So Roddy finds the way to return to the surface is to talk to the captain of a boat called the Jammy Dodger. Now, there are actually a couple of good jokes here, although is it me or does this part feel a bit too similar to the carpets introduction in Aladdin? But then Roddy finds that the boat's captain is a woman?
What? A woman?
You know very well that it is illegal for girls to do anything interesting.
This is Rita, who's trying to hide from another group of rats, but Roddy's inability to avoid slapstick and whatever the heck that was, ends up giving her away. We get a pretty cool introduction to one of the movie's antagonists, Spike.
You thought you could give us the slip?
But again, it's ruined by lame humour.
I mean, do you get it? Because he said, "Given us the slip," and then he slipped. So apparently Rita has a ruby that these two want to take from her.
Are we going to do it the easy way or the hard way?
Oh, I think we should do it the easy way, don't you, Spike?
Huh. See, now that was kind of funny. It seems at times like two different people are writing the comedy for this movie.
Watch and...
Damn! That's one powerful spring!
They start raiding Rita's boat, so Rita, in kind of a dickish move, lies and tells them Roddy stole the ruby. They're about to start torturing him until Roddy conveniently figures out where the ruby is.
Look at the bottom. I mean, is it me or is it oddly shaped?
Wait, it was on her the whole time? They didn't think to search her before they raided the boat?
I mean, it's not like there were many hiding places for it. A quick pat down off her would have been enough. So it seems Rita's not happy about this.
You're toast.
Yes, how dare he simply be honest with them to avoid being tortured after you lied about who he was?
They take the ruby to a toad who has a weird obsession with the royal family. Roddy's hopeful the toad can help him, but after having a good time?
Oh, no, that's not it. What's the word?
Smashing.
That's it!
The toad plans to have him and Rita frozen.
There's a paperclip in my back pocket. See if you can get it. In the pocket, in the pocket.
What's with the weird adult humour in this movie? I don't even get that one.
So after that unnecessary moment of awkwardness, Rita is able to get them free and somehow also get Spike and Whitey into the chamber before the liquid nitrogen was pumped in. Regardless, Rita uses this MacGuffin cable to make her escape, and I guess she's supposed to be kind of a mercenary because she plans to just abandon Roddy at this point.
Which brings the number of dickish things she's done to Roddy up to 3.
In fact, let's talk about Rita for a second. I guess the abandoning him like that is consistent with her basically throwing Roddy under the bus to avoid giving them the ruby earlier. At this point, she's a character that just doesn't care who she has to step on in order to get her way. I get that. She doesn't take much value in other people's lives. But here's the problem. Later on, she's going to go through a redemption arc where she eventually helps Roddy save the day, and it's just very difficult to root for or like a character that we've seen lie at the expense of the main character, be perfectly okay with him being tortured for information he doesn't have, and then abandon him after he helped her escape. I don't care how cool she looks descending down to the ground.
Right now, Rita, you are not a good person. Or rat.
So after more hit in the groin jokes than I can even count...
Which, by the way, comes just a minute after this.
There are things I want to do, sights I want to see. That wasn't on the list.
Roddy gets back onto Rita's boat and tells her it's fake.
It's a fake.
It's real.
No, look. It's just glass.
It's real.
Fake.
Real.
Fake.
Real.
Fake.
Real.
Fake.
Real.
Fake.
Real.
Fake.
Real.
This could go on for a while, guys.
He breaks it to prove it's fake, and after kind of a fun sequence below the deck of the boat, Roddy offers to give her one of the jewels from the house where he lives, if she can get him home.
You got yourself a deal. Your own hand.
Okay, that's kind of funny. Gross, but still funny.
With that said, I do kind of question this deal they make. It seems like both parties have something the other wants, so the deal itself makes sense. But both of them have already betrayed the other for their own ends, so I'd say it's very possible that one, if not both of them, might betray the other again at some point. And it's also likely that they might be thinking about revenge, so I'm not sure either of them would have any reason to trust the other in this situation. Meanwhile, the Toad tells Spike to forget the ruby and get the cable Rita took. Apparently he needs it for his plan to eliminate all the rats. So was taking the cable a selfless act by Rita to help save the rats that goes some way to redeeming her character? No, she just needed it for her escape.
Remind me why we're supposed to be rooting for her again?
Rita stops off at her house with Roddy, where they find a large family that apparently she has to support single-handedly. I guess this is where we're supposed to sympathise with her and realise her actions were justified, but I don't know, this family seems to be doing just fine as it is. What do they need more money for?
Ooh, he's very good looking. He is not coming in.
When did you say he was?
So after a rather abrupt transition where Roddy apparently has come in, we get the standard dysfunctional family scene. Roddy starts to loosen up a bit and bond with Rita's family. That isn't told the old misunderstanding something they overhear trope, and he decides to leave.
I stole your boat.
What?
It's like Robin Hood in reverse.
He would only be Robin Hood in reverse if he then gave the boat to someone rich.
Anyway, this twist of having Roddy double-cross Rita because he thinks she's planning to do the same to him had the potential to be an interesting bit of character development. The problem is the way it comes across is such an overused trope and so overly contrived that it just removes any possible impact it could have had. Wouldn't it have been more effective to just have Roddy wonder for himself if Rita might double-cross him? You could have someone suggest it to him, or he just thinks about something that she's already done to him. You know, like lying about who he is. But it turns out it doesn't really matter, as Rita somehow tracks Roddy down after the boat breaks down, and explains,
That was my stupid little brother's plan, and no one listens to him.
Absolutely nothing.
okay, so it wasn't your plan. Does that mean you weren't planning to go through with it? Why should Roddy believe you, since he already knows you're capable of lying to get out of a difficult situation? But for whatever reason, Roddy does believe her, and he's willing to forget the whole thing. Rita, however, isn't so forgiving.
You can't just leave me here up the creek without a...
Very small guitar?
Well, luckily after a few minutes of filler, Rita agrees to let him back on the boat. So we are basically back to the exact same scenario that we were in 10 minutes ago. In fact, they even do the same handshake.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed these pointless 10 minutes.
A pointless 10 minutes. Luckily, the movie picks up the pace with a fun chase sequence. It has just the right balance of cool and interesting visuals, gags, and stakes that make it gripping and important to the plot. It doesn't overstay its welcome either, being only about 4 minutes long. So the Toad's plan fails, and he plans to send a massive army of Toads after them to retrieve the cable. In the meantime, Roddy and Rita are having supper, and...
That isn't rice, that's maggots you're eating.
This happens.
yeah, maybe this is a good time to bring up these weird moments where these slugs that show up throughout the movie just start singing. I don't know if maybe they were just trying to make them like the minions from Despicable Me.
Albeit 4 years before Despicable Me came out, but they clearly thought they were onto a winner here because they are pretty prominent on the front, side, and back of the DVD.
So after that random moment, we get a bit more bonding between Roddy and Rita.
You're not entirely the useless, whiny, stuck-up, pompous big girl blouse I thought you were. Tell me about your life up top. Friends? Family? You do have a family, don't you?
Oh, of course I do. Brothers, sisters, cousins. Yeah, we're quite a clan. The movies, playing golf, going skiing. It's just so great.
Okay, so I guess there was a bit of a purpose to seeing Rita's family. It has made Roddy open his eyes to the appeal of having friends and family to spend your life with. In fact, that's kind of the movie's message. Find people to spend your life with.
Oh yeah, and if you do live a life of isolation,
He had no one to talk to.
No one to cuddle with. No one to shocky.
Well, that's no life, is it?
well then clearly there's just no way you could possibly be happy.
See, that's the problem here. Roddy didn't seem that unhappy with living alone, or not living with any other rats anyway. If he wants to go and find company, that's fine, but I don't think the movie should be telling people that you have to do that. There are people that are perfectly happy living on their own, rarely going out, and rarely talking to others socially. Many artists, musicians, and writers have only been able to be successful in their work because they don't talk to others that much. The following morning, the two of them are boarded by the Toad's army, and he has what is a pretty creative video call with them.
Rita, hand it over.
Stop there.
The cape.
Roddy tricks them into getting off the boat, but suddenly they head into some rapids with one frog still on board. There's another pretty fun action sequence where they escape with the cable, but the boat is lost.
Goodbye, Jammy, me old mate.
I'll never let go. I promise.
Hey, she's voiced by Kate Winslet, I had to.
There's a pretty cool scene of them flying over London before dropping down a chimney. Roddy keeps his word and gives her a real ruby, but then the truth comes out.
You're all alone up here, aren't you?
Well, no, he does have a human family that keep him as a pet, but I guess she meant in terms of other rats. So, yeah, he's alone. So?
Yeah, I know I've already talked about this, but what's even the issue here? She can see for herself that this is a pretty sweet place he's got. We saw in the opening that he's pretty happy by himself, and any potential company was only a flush down the toilet away. However, Roddy doesn't get the chance to say any of this because Sid shows up.
Have you ever seen anything so pathetic? All Mr. Lonely has got is a couple of dolls. What a loser.
Oh yeah, of course, only a total loser would be on their own. You know, like you were when you arrived.
So Rita leaves in a rather forlorn manner, and Roddy joins Sid in watching the football to take the edge off, I guess. But suddenly he has an epiphany.
He's waiting till half-time. That's the Toad's plan. That's why he needs the cable. When everyone goes to the toilet, the whole city will be flushed away.
Okay, this is kind of funny because I think this plot point might be based on an actual urban legend.
See, over in America, there's this big American football game called the Super Bowl that millions, maybe even billions of people watch. So many people watch it, in fact, that there was this story that the sewage system floods at half-time because so many people go to the loo at the same time. Now don't worry, it's not true. In fact, it doesn't even make sense. American football has tons of breaks in the action. You wouldn't need to wait till half-time to go to the loo. But I do think it's kind of cool that they made this idea the climax of the movie. The problem is, this is set in Britain, and we don't really have an annual sporting event that has anything like the same kind of national attention as the Super Bowl. The closest would probably be when the national side plays at a major tournament, and I guess to maximise national interest, they made it the World Cup final. Seems reasonable. The only problem is that as a pretty big football fan myself, I know the idea of the national side reaching a World Cup final is beyond laughable. So I guess Rita was captured by Spike and Whitey off-screen. The Toad takes the cable back, and Roddy heads back into the sewer.
Rita!
Oh my god! How's he going to get to her in time?
Oh, how convenient!
So Roddy saves Rita, but his triumph is short-lived as the Toad shoots them down and...
Oh, Whitey!
I saw an opportunity and I seized it.
Real high-end comedy you're going for here, guys.
He comes up with a plan to pull the cable.
It's impossible.
England is winning. Anything's possible.
Okay, that's kind of funny.
They use the liquid nitrogen to make their escape, but the Toad corners them on a pipe just as the game reaches half-time.
Oh no!
The hell was that about?
Roddy uses the Toad's tongue to make a pretty cool-looking rescue of Rita, making that the second time in the last 4 minutes he's had to do that. The liquid nitrogen pipe bursts, a huge wall of water approaches the city, and...
And I do have to admit, we get a couple of good jokes here.
High five!
Oh, yeah.
So the day is saved. Roddy and Rita build a new boat, England lose on penalties, probably the most realistic thing to happen in the entire movie, and they speed away into the sewer.
So that was flushed away. It's kind of a mixed bag, to say the least.
I definitely think it's got enough going for it that I don't consider it terrible. The visuals are great, about half the jokes hit, and there was a lot of creativity to the way certain things are used with the villain's plan, and the all-star cast they got were fantastic. But the problems with this movie are big problems. The jokes that don't work are cringeworthy and very low end. The message about how you shouldn't live alone is bullshit, and the character of Rita starts out as way too much of a jerk and doesn't really ever redeem herself. I really didn't get what the slugs were even in this for other than just as something to put on the merchandise, and with it being Aardman's first CGI movie, the animation just doesn't look as good.
Overall, I don't really dislike this movie, but there's definitely more in it that I don't like. So clearly it was the use of CGI that killed this movie. There's just no way Aardman could ever make a good CGI movie. Well, what do I know?